The palace of Velaray was large, shining under the twin suns. Its towers were made of white stone and glowing crystal. But inside, Princess Zelira sat alone in her garden, smaller than most beings in the galaxy, and forgotten by all. Zelira was a Minari, a rare alien race known for their tiny bodies and soft voices. Her skin was pale blue, and her silver eyes sparkled like moonlight. She looked delicate, like a living jewel. But in her world, size meant power. Strength was beauty, and Zelira had neither. Alien males from many star systems had come to the palace over the years. They came in long ships, wearing shiny robes, bringing gifts and promises. But when they saw the princess, so small, so quiet, they turned away. Some laughed behind her back. Others made excuses and left quickly. Not one wanted to bond with her. She is weak, they said. She cannot rule. She is just a doll, not a queen. These cruel words followed her everywhere. Even her own court whispered when she passed. She smiled in front of others, but in her garden she cried alone. She had so much love to give, but no one wanted it. Then one day the humans arrived. Their ship was not large or beautiful, but it came with purpose. They were here to talk about peace, trade, and a future alliance. Among them was a man named Jacob Vance. He was not a noble or a soldier. He was just an explorer and a speaker for Earth. During the welcome feast, the alien nobles stood tall and proud. Zelira stood quietly at the end of the line. She wore a soft green dress, her hands folded, eyes down. No one spoke to her. No one even looked. But Jacob did. He noticed her the moment he entered. Unlike the others, he did not look past her. He walked toward her with a friendly smile. "Hello," he said. "I'm Jacob." Zelira blinked. No alien had ever greeted her like that, not without being forced. "I am Zelira," she said softly. "Nice to meet you, Zelira," Jacob replied. "This is a beautiful garden. Did you grow these flowers?" Zelira's heart skipped. He wasn't looking at her size. He wasn't judging. He was curious, kind, and interested. The other aliens stared in shock. A human, speaking to the princess, as if she mattered. But Jacob didn't care, and for the first time in her life, Zelira felt seen, not as a tiny, weak princess, but as a person. She smiled. Zelira sat near the fountain in her garden, her mind still thinking about the human named Jacob. His smile was warm, his eyes calm. Unlike the other visitors, he hadn't looked at her with pity or pride. He had simply spoken to her like she was normal, like she belonged. The next morning, Jacob walked through the palace garden again. He wasn't following a guide. He was just exploring. When he saw Zelira sitting alone, he smiled and walked over. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. Zelira stood up quickly, unsure what to do. "Good morning. Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the stone bench beside her. She shook her head. "No, you may sit." Jacob sat down, his hands resting on his knees. He looked around at the glowing plants and softly humming vines. "This garden is amazing. Your world is full of wonders." Zelira looked at him quietly. Most aliens do not care about gardens. They care only for power. Jacob chuckled. "Well, they're missing out. Peace is also power. Beauty can be strong too." Zelira tilted her head. "You are strange, human." He grinned. "I get that a lot." She gave a small laugh. It surprised her. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed near a guest. "Why did you speak to me?" she asked suddenly. "The others, they avoid me." Jacob looked at her with honest eyes. "Because I saw someone sitting alone. And because I don't care about what others think." Zelira blinked. "You are not afraid of me. Should I be?" She shook her head quickly. "No, but others think I am weak, that I do not deserve to rule." Jacob leaned forward slightly. "I've learned something on Earth. The people who seem weakest often carry the strongest hearts. Zelira looked down, her cheeks warm. No one had ever said such things to her, not even her own people. I want to know more about you, Jacob added. About your people, your dreams, and why your garden hums. Zelira looked up in surprise. No one had ever asked about her dreams. I do not know if I have dreams anymore, she whispered. Jacob smiled kindly. Then maybe we'll find them together. At that moment, something changed inside her, a small spark. She didn't know what it was yet, but it felt warm, safe. From a distance, alien nobles watched the human and the small princess sitting together. Some sneered, some whispered, but Zelira didn't care. For once, she wasn't invisible. She was Zelira. And Jacob had seen her. Zelira had never waited for someone before, but today, she sat on the garden bench, her heart beating a little faster. Morning light touched the leaves, and the soft hum of the plants filled the air. She glanced at the path, hoping to see the human again. And then, he came. Jacob walked in with a relaxed smile, holding something behind his back. Good morning, princess, he said. Zelira stood. You returned. I said I would, Jacob replied, then revealed what he had been hiding. A small flower with bright yellow petals. For you. Zelira blinked. This is from my garden. I found it near the edge. It looked lonely, Jacob said, like it wanted to be noticed. Zelira carefully took the flower. Thank you. No one has ever given me anything like this. Jacob sat down beside her again. You know, when I first came to your world, I didn't expect this. This? She asked. He nodded. Meeting someone so unique, everyone talks about power and wealth, but no one talks about the person who keeps the garden alive. Zelira's cheeks turned a soft shade of pink. She lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. You're not just a princess, Jacob continued. You're someone with deep thoughts, with kindness. I can feel it. Zelira's heart fluttered. You do not think I am weak. No, Jacob said simply. I think you're strong in a different way. Maybe even stronger than those who look down on you. She looked at him with wide, shining eyes. You are the first to say such words to me. Jacob leaned back, watching the trees sway. Then those before me were blind. There was silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. Zelira's voice broke the stillness. Do you miss your world? Jacob smiled faintly. Sometimes. Earth isn't perfect, but it's home. Still, I've always wanted to see the stars. Meet people who are different. Understand them. Zelira nodded slowly. You are different, Jacob, but I think that is why I feel safe with you. Just then, two tall alien nobles passed nearby. They stopped and stared at the scene. One of them whispered something and laughed. The other shook his head in disbelief. Look at the human. Sitting with the rejected one. One said, loud enough for Zelira to hear. Her smile faded. But before she could say anything, Jacob stood up and turned to them. Is there a problem? The taller alien raised an eyebrow. You're wasting your time. That tiny thing will never be a real queen. Jacob's voice was calm but firm. Then maybe your people don't understand what a real queen looks like. The alien sneered and walked away. Zelira stared at Jacob in shock. No one had ever defended her like that. You spoke for me, she whispered. Of course, Jacob said. Because you matter. Zelira looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. And in that moment, she started to believe. Maybe he was right. The news spread quickly through the palace. A human was spending time with the rejected princess. Whispers filled the halls, and nobles sneered behind fake smiles. Some laughed. Others called it shameful. But Zelira didn't care. She walked the halls differently now. Her steps were still soft, but her head was a little higher. She didn't feel as invisible anymore. Jacob's words stayed in her heart. One afternoon, Jacob was invited to the Hall of Voices, a wide-open room where alien nobles gathered to discuss trade and politics. The room was filled with gold banners and glowing stones. Celera stood at the side, silent as always. When Jacob entered, the talking stopped. One alien prince, a tall warrior named Velos, stepped forward. He wore armor lined with dark blue metal and had sharp, proud eyes. "So," Velos said loudly, "the human returns," still following the little princess like a pet. Laughter spread through the room. Celera froze. Jacob didn't react. He walked calmly toward the center of the hall. "I follow no one," he said. "I choose where I go, and I chose to speak with someone who actually listens." Velos chuckled darkly. "You must be desperate. No male in 10 systems has accepted her. What makes you think you're different?" Jacob looked him straight in the eye. "Because I see what you don't. You're all blind, staring at each other's size and power. But none of you see her mind, her heart." The hall went silent. Celera's fingers tightened around the hem of her dress. She could barely breathe. Velos's smile faded. "Careful, human. You forget your place." "No," Jacob said calmly. "I remember it well. I'm not from here. I don't have a title or a crown. But maybe that's why I see things clearly." He turned and walked to Celera. If standing beside her is something to mock, then let them laugh. Celera's heart swelled. Her chest felt tight with emotion. No one had ever said such things. Not in front of others, not without shame. Velos said nothing. He only watched with cold eyes as Jacob offered his arm to Celera. For a moment, she hesitated. Then slowly, proudly, she took it. They walked out of the hall together. Outside, the garden air felt cooler. Celera looked up at Jacob, her voice soft. "Why do you do this? You gain nothing." Jacob smiled gently. "I gain everything. Your smile is worth more than their empty praise." Celera stopped walking. "Do you really believe I matter?" He nodded. "Yes. And one day, they will too." For the first time in her life, Celera didn't just feel seen. She felt protected. And in that moment, she realized something deeper. She didn't want him to leave. The sun was setting over Velere, painting the sky with orange and soft purple light. The garden looked even more magical in the evening glow. Celera stood beside the fountain, waiting. When Jacob arrived, he wasn't wearing the formal jacket given to all human guests. Instead, he wore a simple shirt, the sleeves rolled up. His hair was a bit messy from the breeze, but his smile was the same, warm and easy. "You're late," Celera said, trying to sound serious. Jacob held up his hands. "Guilty. I got lost in the eastern wing. Your palace is like a maze." She gave a soft laugh. "That part was made to confuse invaders. I didn't think it would confuse you too." He walked closer. "Maybe I'm an invader of your peace." Celera raised an eyebrow. "Maybe." They sat on a curved bench near the glowing lily trees. For a moment, they said nothing. Just listened to the soft hum of the plants and the bubbling water. Jacob turned to her. "You always come here alone." She nodded. "It's the only place that feels like mine." He looked around. "It's beautiful, peaceful. I can see why you like it." Celera hesitated, then said, "I want to show you something." She stood and guided him deeper into the garden, past a stone wall covered in vines. Behind it was a hidden space, small, quiet, filled with floating lights. Tiny glowing creatures danced in the air, soft as feathers, bright like stars. Jacob's eyes widened. "Whoa, what are these?" "They're called windflits," she whispered. "They only come when they feel safe." One of them floated near Jacob's hand. He stayed still, and it landed gently on his finger. Celera watched, surprised. "They don't trust strangers." Jacob looked at the little creature. "Maybe I'm not a stranger anymore." Celera smiled softly. They sat under a tree, surrounded by light and quiet. "I never told anyone about this place. Zalira said. I thought no one would care. I care, Jacob said simply. She looked at him, eyes gentle but full of emotion. Why? Why are you so different? He took a breath. Because I know how it feels to be ignored. On Earth, I wasn't rich. I wasn't important. But I found value in simple things. Friendship, honesty, peace. And I see those things in you. Her voice trembled. You don't see me as weak. No, he said. I see you as someone the galaxy doesn't deserve, but deeply needs. Zalira felt a warmth grow inside her, a feeling she didn't fully understand yet. It wasn't just friendship. It was something deeper, something she had never felt before. And as they sat close, under the soft glow of windflits, she thought quietly to herself. Maybe this human was the gift the stars had sent just for her. The royal hall was filled with high-ranking aliens from different planets. There was excitement in the air. The Velray Council had made an announcement. Princess Zalira would be bonded soon, and a royal consort would be chosen. But there was one problem. No one had come forward. The council stood tall, their voices echoing through the hall. Today we open the chance for anyone of noble blood or worthy name to step forward and request bonding with Princess Zalira. Silence. Zalira stood behind the council, her hands tight at her sides. Her heart beat fast, but she didn't show it. She already knew what would happen. One alien prince coughed and looked away. Another yawned and pretended not to hear. Others avoided her eyes completely. It was painful, but not new. Then, a single voice broke the silence. I will. All heads turned. It was Jacob. He stood at the back of the hall, calm and steady. His voice was clear. His eyes were only on Zalira. The nobles laughed. A human. Bond with the princess. How dared he speak in this hall? He's not even one of us. This is a joke. But Zalira didn't laugh. Her eyes were wide, her heart racing. She stepped forward before the council could respond. I accept. The room fell silent again. The oldest council member looked shocked. Princess, you accept the human. She nodded, voice strong. Yes, I do. One noble shouted, but he has no title, no bloodline. He is. Enough, Zalira said, louder than anyone had ever heard her speak before. He may not be from this world, but he has more honor than any male who stood in this room today. Jacob walked forward, standing beside her. I may be human, he said, but I didn't come here for a throne. I came because I care for her, and I will stand beside her, always. The council looked at each other in disbelief. The oldest member finally spoke. If this is your choice, princess, then by law, a test must be given. The trial of hearts. If he passes, he will be accepted. Jacob nodded without hesitation. I'll do it. Zalira turned to him, worried. The trial is not easy. It tests your spirit, your mind, even your memories. Jacob smiled gently. If it leads to you, then it's worth it. The room watched them closely, two figures standing side by side. A small princess once rejected, and a human man who saw her worth when no one else did. Outside the palace, the sky darkened as the day ended. Inside, something new had begun. Zalira looked at Jacob, her voice soft. You don't have to do this. He looked into her eyes. Yes, I do. For you. The day of the trial of hearts arrived. The palace was filled with tension. The air was thick with anticipation. Zalira stood in the grand hall, her heart racing. The council had arranged the trial in an ancient, sacred chamber deep within the palace. It was a place where no one had entered in generations. Jacob stood beside her, looking calm but with an intensity in his eyes that matched her own. He had been prepared for this moment, but he had no idea what was waiting for him. You don't have to do this, Jacob, Zalira whispered. Jacob turned to her with a reassuring smile. I already told you, I'm here because I want to be. I'm not afraid. Zalira's heart fluttered. She had never felt this much emotion before. The fact that someone believed in her, that someone wanted her, no, truly saw her, meant everything to her. The council led them to the trial chamber, a circular room made of dark stone. It was filled with ancient symbols glowing faintly along the walls. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, holding a strange crystal that pulsed with a soft inner light. The crystal was the heart of the trial. The trial would begin once Jacob touched it. The council members stood at the edges of the room, their eyes cold and judging. Zalira watched quietly as Jacob approached the pedestal. His expression was steady. He didn't look nervous, but she could see the slight tremble in his hand. The moment Jacob's fingers touched the crystal, the room grew darker. A low hum echoed through the walls. Suddenly, Jacob was alone. The chamber had transformed into something unrecognizable. It was a place that seemed to stretch on forever, black voids surrounding him, filled with strange lights and shifting shadows. In front of him appeared a vision, the face of a boy, just a few years older than Jacob had been when he first lost everything. The boy's face was familiar, his younger brother, Noah. "Why did you leave me?" The vision of Noah asked, his voice echoing in the empty space. "You promised you would protect me." Jacob's chest tightened. He hadn't thought about Noah in years. The memories of that night, the night he lost his brother in the war, rushed back. His breath became shallow. "I couldn't protect you," Jacob whispered. "I wasn't strong enough." Tears welled in his eyes, but he wiped them away, clenching his fists. "But I'm not weak anymore. I have a reason to fight. I will not give up." The vision of Noah faded, replaced by another. This time, it was Jacob standing alone on earth, surrounded by the ruins of his home. He had spent years wandering the galaxy, hoping to find a place where he could make a difference. But then the image shifted again, and Zalira appeared, standing before him. Her tiny form glowed in the darkness. "Do you really believe you can stand by me?" she asked. Jacob didn't hesitate. "Yes, for you, I will do anything." The vision smiled. With that, the darkness faded. The room was bright again, and Jacob found himself back in the center of the trial chamber, the crystal now glowing brightly in his hands. He had passed the trial. The council watched in stunned silence. Zalira stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "He has passed the trial of hearts. He is worthy." For the first time, the council said nothing. Jacob turned to Zalira, his eyes filled with emotion. "I told you I would stand by you." Zalira smiled, her heart full. For the first time, she felt truly seen and truly loved. The council had no more words to say. They stood in stunned silence as the crystal glowed brightly in Jacob's hands. It was as if the very room itself was acknowledging his victory. For the first time in Velray's history, a human had passed the trial of hearts. Zalira, standing beside Jacob, felt a rush of emotions. It wasn't just the victory of the trial. It was the fact that, against all odds, Jacob had chosen her. And he hadn't just chosen her for her title or her crown. He had chosen her for who she truly was. The silence in the room stretched for a moment longer. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to do next. They had never expected the trial to end this way. It was clear now. Jacob was not just a human. He was someone who understood the true meaning of strength. Zalira felt a gentle pressure on her hand. She looked up at Jacob, who smiled down at her with kindness. The warmth of his touch steadied her heart. Finally, the oldest council member spoke. "The trial is past. By law, he may now claim the title of consort." Jacob looked at Zalira. "If you'll have me." Zalira's heart raced, but this time it was not out of fear. She had already made up her mind. "I will," she whispered, her voice steady and strong. The council reluctantly nodded, and the room seemed to fill with the quiet acceptance of the impossible. The nobles had no choice now. The human had proven his worth in the trial. Jacob was not only Zalira's consort now, he was a part of the royal family. As the ceremony began, Zalira stood beside him. She looked at Jacob with a mixture of awe and gratitude. He had shown her a world she never thought possible, a world where love and trust were more important than titles or strength. The stars outside the palace glowed brightly in the night sky, casting a soft light over the ceremony. The nobles who had once looked down on Zelira and mocked her had no choice now but to accept the union. The galaxy would soon know the story of the tiny princess and the human who had seen her as more than just a weak, fragile being. Zelira turned to Jacob and took his hand. The crowd fell silent, watching as the two of them stood together. An unlikely pair, but one that the universe had never seen before. They had chosen each other not because of what they could gain, but because they saw each other for who they truly were. Jacob squeezed her hand gently. "We've just begun," he said quietly. Zelira smiled. Together. The galaxy had many stories, but this one would be different. It would be about a tiny alien princess and a human who had chosen to see her for the strong, beautiful soul she was. It would be about an alliance not of power, but of love, one that would change the fate of both their worlds forever. Days passed, and the new bond between Zelira and Jacob became stronger with each moment. The palace, once filled with whispers and cold looks, now felt alive with hope. There were still some who doubted the strength of their union, but it didn't matter. The princess had found someone who believed in her, someone who saw her as more than just a title. Zelira sat beside Jacob in the palace garden, her small hands resting in his. They were alone, away from the palace bustle, just the two of them in their shared peace. The garden had always been Zelira's safe place, but now, with Jacob beside her, it felt more like a home. "I never thought this would be possible," Zelira said, her voice soft. "To have someone by my side who truly sees me, not just for my crown, but for who I am." Jacob looked at her, his smile gentle. "I've never understood how anyone could look at you and see weakness. You're stronger than anyone I've met." Zelira's heart swelled at his words. For so long, she had been seen as fragile, as someone to be ignored or rejected. But Jacob had never seen her that way. He had looked past her size, past the judgment of the others, and seen her for what she truly was, a person with a heart, with dreams, with strength. Their hands tightened together. "I've seen enough to know that people like you don't come around often," Jacob continued. "And when I found you, I knew I couldn't walk away." Zelira smiled. "I never thought anyone would choose me. Not after everything." Jacob shook his head. "I didn't choose you out of pity. I chose you because I saw something worth fighting for. And I'll fight for you, Zelira, no matter what." A soft breeze rustled the leaves around them, carrying the sweet scent of the flowers. The quiet was soothing, but there was an unspoken question that hung in the air. "What happens now?" Zelira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What will we do?" Jacob's gaze turned serious. "We change things, together. You're not just a princess anymore. You're a symbol, and so am I. People need to see that it's not size or strength that makes someone powerful. It's the heart, the spirit, and you've got that in spades." Zelira looked up at the stars above, the same stars she had stared at for so many nights, feeling alone. But now, they felt different. They felt like something to reach for, something she could share with Jacob. She took a deep breath and smiled. "I think you're right. I think it's time to show the galaxy that there's more to strength than anyone realizes." Jacob nodded. "And I'll be right here beside you, every step of the way." For the first time in her life, Zelira felt a sense of purpose. It wasn't just about a title. It was about showing everyone that even the smallest, most overlooked person could change the galaxy. And with Jacob by her side, she knew they could do just that. Zelira stood on the balcony of the royal palace, her eyes fixed on the stars. The evening was calm, the soft hum of the palace in the background. It felt like the universe had shifted, like everything had fallen into place. The stars above her glowed brightly, but tonight, they didn't seem so far away. Beside her, Jacob stood quietly, watching the stars with her. The weight of the past few weeks had been heavy, full of challenges, doubts, and tests. But now, the burden felt lighter. The galaxy had watched their bond grow, watched the tiny alien princess choose a human over everyone who had rejected her. And together, they had proven that strength comes in many forms. "I never thought this day would come," Zalira said softly, turning to face Jacob. "I didn't think anyone would ever choose me." Jacob smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I did, and I'll always choose you, Zalira." She looked at him, her heart full of emotions she had never allowed herself to feel before. She had spent so long hiding behind her title, afraid of being judged for her size, for the things that made her different. But Jacob had never seen her as different. He had seen her as someone worth fighting for. "You've changed everything," she whispered. "You've made me believe in myself." Jacob reached out, gently cupping her face with his hand. "You didn't need to believe in yourself just because of me. You've always been strong. You just needed someone to see it." Zalira closed her eyes, the touch of his hand comforting and familiar. She had been lost for so long, wandering in the shadows of doubt, unsure of who she really was. But Jacob had brought her into the light, showed her that she was more than what the galaxy had expected her to be. She wasn't just a princess or a symbol of weakness. She was a person, and she deserved love and respect just as much as anyone else. "I've always been afraid," Zalira said quietly, "afraid of not being enough, afraid of being left behind." Jacob's expression softened. "You're more than enough, Zalira, and you'll never be left behind. I'm with you always." Tears welled up in Zalira's eyes, but she didn't try to hide them. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel everything. The joy, the relief, the overwhelming love she had for the human standing beside her. The stars above seemed to shine brighter in that moment, as if they, too, recognized the importance of what was happening. "You've given me more than I could ever ask for," Zalira said, her voice trembling. "You've given me a future." Jacob stepped closer, his hand still gently holding her face. "We'll build that future together, you and me." And as they stood there, under the stars that now seemed within reach, Zalira knew that no matter what the galaxy thought of them, they had each other. They had something real, something unbreakable. The tiny alien princess had chosen the human who saw her for who she truly was. And together, they would change the galaxy, not with power, but with love.